Hi, my name is Amit Ramesh Chaudhary, and I am one of the students of international business in Thompson's Rivers University. And today I'm going to present about my topic, which is India-Canada trade negotiations. So it is about an article that was published recently about the India-Canada trade relations and how it has improved. So the next slide, I'm gonna emphasize more on this topic and how it's related to our, to our chapters, what we are studying currently. So what happened and why it matters? So yeah, this trade agreement it happened on March 2nd, 2026. India and Canada resumed their CEPA negotiations. So what is CEPA? So CEPA is a comprehensive economic partnership agreement between two countries. So it was finalized in 2026, and it's a two-way trade which already sits at Canadian dollars in 30.8 billion, and it has an ambition to grow up to 70 billion by 2030. It will happen only when the two countries are on the same page. So the priority sector that was discussed is it includes energy, critical minerals, agriculture, aerospace, and technology. For business managers, this matters because trade policy is directly shaping where capital flows and how economic chains get destined. So, what's the next slides talk about? So it talks more about Canada and India CEPA and why it is more opportunity than risk for firms. So it has a very strong point because it has a good payoff from like all over over the years that India and Canada has struggled. This deal would really put them in a strong position as compared to other countries, and the weak point would be uncertainty surrounding their relation, so which would weaken their trade agreement. So to balance that, it is very important. So I'm going to emphasize more on the opportunity and risk of of this agreement and how it's related to our chapters. So let's jump into the next slide, where it talks about chapter 6, which is government and political economy of trade, and how it will shape the political coalition and strategic sector interest, and not just economics. So CPA would extend well beyond tariffs into rules of origin, standards, service, and digital trade rules. So Canada wants market diversification and strategic sector cooperation, wherein India wants capital, technology, and predictable ties with the G7 partner. So what happens in the next chapter? Let's see. So next chapter it talks about FDI, entry mode, and government policies. So let's see what happens here. So CEPA it improves predictability, which directly lowers the perceived risk of committing capital to either markets. Using the Chapter 7 entry mode of framework, export first when uncertainty is high. Move to a partner or joint venture where local knowledge matters, and only commit to greenfield or acquisition when scale justifies it. So the six key sectors at the bottom is energy, mineral, aerospace, clean tech, agri-food, and services. They are where this logic applies most directly. So next is the third is how chapter 8 is connected, which is economic integration. So it introduces the integration ladder from preferential agreements at the base up to a full economic union. The CEPA would sit at the lower rungs, a preferential bilateral agreement moving towards a free trade area. It would not create a custom union, common market, or policy harmonization like CUSMA or the EU. For firms, the key takeaway is to gain are real but incremental better conditions and lower transition cost, not automatic deep integration. So where is the upside is where the upside is real and where it is overstated. Let's see the opportunities and risk. So on the opportunity side, it gives firms better market access, lower policy uncertainty, and formal framework for partners, search, and sector cooperation. It also fits global trend of supply chain diversification, wherein on the flip side, The negotiation may slip or exclude sensitive sectors. Non tariff barriers may remain high, and a political setback could weaken momentum again as it did in 2023. So, yeah, this could shake the partnership. So, let's see, what should the business managers do? So, the four practical implications for managers would be: first, to screen sectors, prioritize where Canadian and Indian strengths generally complement each other. And the second would be to choose entry mode using Chapter 7 framework, which is export first, then partner. This greenfield as confidence grows. The third would be build compliance capability before entry. Standard and certification requirements must be mapped early and after commitment. The fourth use scenario would be planning. So prepare for broad, partial, and delayed outcomes simultaneously and phase your commitment accordingly. So to conclude my presentation, the CEPA is more opportunity than risk, but only under disciplined reading. So the chapter 6 explains why the deal is shaped by political compromise. Chapter 7 shows how it shifts FDI incentives and entry mode decisions, wherein the chapter 8 tells us what CEPA is not. It is not deep integration. So after signature, managers should watch tariff scope, services, and digital trade rules, rules of origin quality, and implementation pace. So the bottom line would be strategy should follow treaty detail, not treaty optimism. That's it from my end. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. And here's the reference in the last slide. Thank you.